Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The barrel of the Glock 19 pressed against the center of Ren's forehead was cold, biting into the skin, but it was scorching compared to the glacial zero of the eyes staring back at him. "Did you really think?" the man holding the gun whispered, his voice a velvety baritone that wrapped around Ren's throat like a noose. "That you could wear my ring on your finger while wiring my conversations to the Narcotics Bureau, Ren?" The click of the safety being disengaged echoed like a thunderclap in the silent, glass-walled penthouse. Rain lashed against the panoramic windows, blurring the neon kaleidoscope of the Seoul skyline below, but inside, time had frozen. Ren, on his knees on the Persian rug, his hands zip-tied behind his back, looked up. He didn't see a monster. He saw Kang Seo-jun, the man who had held him through nightmares, the man who ruled the underworld with an iron fist, and the man Ren had been sent to destroy. "Shoot me then," Ren gasped, sweat causing his dark fringe to stick to his pale brow. "Finish it, Seo-jun." Seo-jun tilted his head, a dark, predatory amusement dancing on his lips. He lowered the gun, not to holster it, but to trace the suppressor down the line of Ren's jaw, resting it under his chin to force his head up. "Death is easy, Detective Lee. Death is a mercy. And after breaking my heart, you deserve no mercy." Chapter 1. The Glass Castle. The relationship had been a slow-acting poison, sweet at first, intoxicating, and then fatal before Ren had realized he was dying. 6 months ago, Ren had infiltrated the Golden Dragon Syndicate. His mission was simple: get close to Kang Seo-jun, the elusive heir to the Empire, find the ledger, and get out. But Seo-jun wasn't the brute the police files described. He was cultured, played Rachmaninoff on the grand piano at 3 a.m., and possessed a loneliness that mirrored the void inside Ren. They had fallen into bed, and then into love, with the reckless abandonment of two men who knew they were walking on a razor's edge. Now, that edge had cut them both. 3 days had passed since the confrontation in the living room. Ren was no longer bound by zip ties, but he was more trapped than ever. The penthouse, spanning the top floor of the Dragon Tower, was a fortress. The elevators required biometric scans Ren didn't have. The windows were bulletproof. Ren sat on the edge of the massive king-sized bed, wearing silk pajamas that Seo-jun had laid out for him. He felt like a doll, a porcelain figure kept in a glass cabinet. The door opened, and Seo-jun entered. He was impeccable in a charcoal three-piece suit, a blood-red tie the only splash of color. He carried a silver tray with breakfast. Domesticity weaponized. "You haven't eaten," Seo-jun noted, placing the tray on the nightstand. He sat in the armchair opposite the bed, crossing his long legs, watching Ren with that unreadable, intense gaze. "I'm not hungry," Ren muttered, turning his head away. "I want to go home." "This is your home," Seo-jun corrected calmly. "Your apartment has been vacated. Your lease terminated. And as for your job, well, that's a more interesting story." Ren's head snapped back. "What did you do?" Seo-jun reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a tablet, sliding it across the sheets. "I didn't do anything, my love. I simply let nature take its course." Ren grabbed the device. On the screen was a breaking news report. Asterisk disgraced Detective Lee Ren wanted for corruption and evidence tampering. Sources say he was on the payroll of the Golden Dragon Syndicate. Asterisk. Ren's hands shook. You framed me. I protected you," Seo-jun said, his voice dropping an octave, deadly serious. "The moment you entered my world, you were dead, Ren. If the Syndicate elders found out a rat was in my bed, they would have skinned you alive. I couldn't allow that. So, I made you one of us. One of us." Ren threw the tablet aside, standing up, his chest heaving. "I am a police officer. I swore an oath." "You swore an oath to me." Seo-jun stood up too, closing the distance in 2 strides. He grabbed Ren's wrist, pulling him close until their chests collided. The scent of sandalwood and expensive tobacco overwhelmed Ren's senses. "You whispered it against my skin 3 nights ago. Or was that a lie too?" Ren faltered. "It wasn't a lie. That was the tragedy." "Seo-jun, please. The police think you turned. The underworld thinks you're my corrupted pet. You have nowhere else to go, Ren. The world outside these walls wants you dead or in prison. I am the only thing standing between you and oblivion." Seo-jun's hand moved to the back of Rin's neck, his thumb stroking the pulse point that hammered frantically. You belong to me. Not because of chains, but because I am the only one who knows the truth. I know you love me. Rin wanted to scream, to fight, but his body betrayed him. As Seo-jun leaned in, Rin's eyes fluttered shut. The kiss was punishing, tasting of betrayal and desperate need. It was a seal on his warrant, a signature on his soul. Chapter 2. The Viper's Strike. Weeks bled into a month. Rin existed in a fugue state of luxury and despair. He was given freedom within the penthouse, access to the library, the gym, the cinema. But he was never alone. Even when Seo-jun was gone on business, the shadow of his presence lingered. Rin tried to hate him. He analyzed Seo-jun's operations from the inside, looking for a weakness, a way to clear his name. But the more he watched, the more he realized the complexity of Seo-jun's position. Seo-jun wasn't just a criminal, he was a stabilizer. He kept the more violent, chaotic gangs in check. Without him, Seoul would be a war zone. Why did he keep me? Rin wondered constantly. Why not just kill me? One evening, the answer came in blood. Seo-jun had returned home late, his usual composure fractured. His jacket was missing, his white shirt stained red at the shoulder. He stumbled through the foyer, collapsing against the marble console table. Rin, who had been reading in the lounge, dropped his book and ran over. Instinct overtook resentment. Seo-jun. He caught the larger man before he hit the floor. Seo-jun was heavy, burning up. Ambush. Seo-jun gritted out, his teeth stained with blood. The Viper clan. Breached security. Rin dragged him to the sofa, ripping open the shirt. A gunshot wound, through the shoulder. Messy, but not fatal if treated quickly. Where is the doctor? Rin demanded, grabbing a throw pillow to apply pressure. Compromised, Seo-jun gasped, gripping Rin's wrist with a strength that shouldn't have been possible. Trust. No one. Only you. Rin froze. The irony was suffocating. The man who had imprisoned him, who had ruined his life, was now bleeding out in his arms, trusting him with his life. Rin looked at the gun tucked into Seo-jun's waistband. This was it. The moment of freedom. He could take the gun. He could finish what the Viper started. Or he could just walk out the door and leave Seo-jun to die. The biometric lock on the elevator was overridden during emergency protocols. He could leave. He looked at the gun. Then he looked at Seo-jun's face. Pale, beaded with sweat, eyes half-lidded but fixed on Rin with a terrifying vulnerability. Do it, Seo-jun whispered, seeing the conflict in Rin's eyes. If you want to leave, kill me. It's the only way I'll let you go. Rin's hand hovered over the weapon. His heart slammed against his ribs like a trapped bird. He thought of the lies, the manipulation, the cage. Then he thought of the way Seo-jun played the piano, the way he had shielded Rin from the truth of the underworld, the way he looked at Rin like he was the only source of light in a dark world. Rin grabbed the gun. Seo-jun closed his eyes, accepting his fate. Click. Rin racked the slide, checking the chamber, and then set the gun on the table, out of reach. Shut up, Rin snapped, his voice trembling. I'm going to get the first aid kit. Don't you dare die on me. When Rin returned with the medical supplies, Seo-jun was watching him with an expression that was no longer just obsession. It was reverence. As Rin cleaned the wound, stitching the flesh with hands steady from years of field medic training, the silence between them shifted. It was no longer the silence of captor and captive. It was the heavy, charged silence of partners. Why? Seo-jun asked softly, wincing as the needle pierced his skin. Because, Rin murmured, not meeting his eyes. If you die, the Vipers take over. And I'd rather deal with the devil I know. Is that the only reason? Rin tied off the suture and finally looked up. No. But it's the only one I'm willing to admit right now. Chapter 3. The King and His Queen. The attack on Seo-jun had been an inside job, orchestrated by a lieutenant who thought Seo-jun had gone soft because of his infatuation with the ex-cop. Recovery was slow, but it brought a new dynamic. Rin was no longer kept in the dark. To protect them both, Seo-jun began to bring Rin into the fold. He needed Rin's tactical mind, his knowledge of police procedure, to root out the traitors. It was a seduction of a different kind. Seo-jun didn't seduce Rin with jewelry or promises. He seduced him with power. He showed Rin the chessboard, and for the first time, Rin felt the thrill of being a player rather than a pawn. They sat in the office one rainy Tuesday. Maps and dossiers were spread across the mahogany desk. "The lieutenant is meeting the Viper head tonight at the docks," Rin said, pointing to a location on the map. "It's a trap. They expect you to send a hit squad." "What do you suggest?" Seo-jun asked, leaning back in his leather chair, watching Rin command the room. "We don't send a squad," Rin said, his eyes cold. "We send the police." Seo-jun raised an eyebrow. "I thought you were done with them." "I am," Rin smiled, a sharp, dangerous thing that mirrored Seo-jun's own expression. "But we can use anonymous tips. Let the law take out your trash. While the Vipers and the police are busy shooting each other, your loyalists secure the vacuum in the East District." Seo-jun stood up and walked around the desk. He stopped behind Rin, placing his hands on Rin's shoulders. "You think like a criminal, detective." "I learned from the best," Rin replied, leaning back into the touch. "Are you still my prisoner, Rin?" Seo-jun whispered into his ear, his lips grazing the shell. Rin turned in the chair, looking up at the man who had destroyed him and rebuilt him. The line between love and hate had eroded completely, leaving only a fierce, consuming devotion. "No," Rin said, reaching up to grab Seo-jun's tie, pulling him down for a searing kiss. "I'm your accomplice." The climax, the Red Gala. The consolidation of power culminated in the Red Gala, the annual gathering of the underworld families. It was held in the grand ballroom of the Dragon Tower. Rin stood by Seo-jun's side, dressed in a white tuxedo that contrasted sharply with Seo-jun's all-black attire. They were yin and yang, darkness and light, inextricably bound. The whispers rippled through the room as they entered. The dragon and his pet cop, the traitor. Rin held his head high. He felt the weight of the gazes, the judgment, the danger. A month ago, he would have crumbled. Now, with Seo-jun's hand firmly on the small of his back, he felt invincible. The Viper boss, an older man with a scar running down his face, approached them, a glass of champagne in hand. "Kong Seo-jun," the Viper sneered. "And the little bird who sings. I'm surprised you haven't clipped his wings yet. Or his tongue." The room went silent. Insulting the consort was an insult to the king. Seo-jun's expression didn't change, but the air around him dropped 10 degrees. "Careful, elder. My patience is thinner than the glass in your hand. He's a liability." The Viper spat, looking at Rin with disgust. "Once a cop, always a cop. How do we know he isn't wearing a wire right now?" Seo-jun laughed, a low, terrifying sound. "Because, elder, if he wanted you dead, he wouldn't need a wire. He'd need 5 seconds and a steak knife." Seo-jun turned to Rin. "Show them." It was a test. The final test. Rin didn't hesitate. He picked up a steak knife from a passing waiter's tray. The movement was fluid, practiced. In one motion, he slammed the blade down onto the table, embedding it inches from the Viper's hand. The vibration shattered the Viper's champagne flute. Glass and wine exploded. The Viper flinched back, pale. Rin leaned in, his voice calm, projecting authority. "The police rely on evidence, elder. I rely on results. Step out of line again, and the next one won't hit the table." The room exhaled. The message was clear. The detective was dead. The queen had risen. Seo-jun looked at Rin, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and unbridled lust. He took Rin's hand, kissing the knuckles that were still white from gripping the knife. "Let's go home," Seo-jun murmured. "We are home," Rin replied. As they walked out of the ballroom, leaving the stunned criminal elite in their wake, Rin realized the truth. He hadn't just fallen in love with his captor. He had fallen in love with the darkness within himself that Seo-jun had unlocked. He wasn't a victim of Stockholm Syndrome. He was a willing participant in a kingdom built on blood and obsession. And that is how the badge shattered, and the king claimed his queen. If you enjoyed seeing the darkness consume them both, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, is love true if it starts with a lie? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt, masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art. 2 men, BL, Yaoi, man 1. Seo-jun, tall, muscular, sharp jawline, cold eyes, black hair slicked back, wearing black suit with blood-red tie, possessive hand on shoulder of man 2. Intense gaze. Man 2. Run, Slightly shorter, slender but fit, dark messy hair, wearing white tuxedo, holding a steak knife, defiant expression, standing next to man 1. Background is a luxurious ballroom with chandeliers, stunned crowd in shadows, shattered glass on a table, dramatic lighting, cinematic composition, sharp focus, intricate details, high contrast.